What happens when a flight attendant challenges a quiet man's right to wear a small cross around his neck, not realizing that man is Elon Musk? What began as a subtle moment of judgment over a simple silver pendant evolved into something far greater, a moment that would ripple across the entire aircraft. By the time they touched down, no one on board would forget what he said, or how he said it. Oh, and before we take off, where are you watching this from? We love reading your reactions. The central terminal at San Francisco International Airport buzzed with the usual weekday mayhem. Business travelers marched with purpose, children zigzagged between legs dragging oversized plush toys, and rolling announcements echoed through the high ceilings. In the midst of it all, one man moved slowly, calmly, like none of it applied to him. He wore a plain gray t-shirt, jeans that had clearly seen better days, and a pair of sneakers worn thin at the soles. No bodyguards. No suitcase with monogram tags. No luxury accessories. Just Elon Musk, though few noticed. A couple of passengers glanced in his direction with vague curiosity, as if trying to place a familiar face. But most were too wrapped up in their own journeys to recognize the man who quietly passed through like any other traveler. If anything, he looked slightly misplaced amid the polished designer luggage and pristine business suits. And yet one detail stood out, hanging loosely around his neck. A modest silver cross caught the airport lighting. It wasn't flashy or oversized, just a worn little emblem that felt far more personal than performative. When Elon reached the first-class boarding lane, he handed his pass to the uniformed flight attendant at the gate. Her name tag read, Denise, and her posture was as upright as her hair was immaculately styled. She paused, looking from the boarding pass to the man in front of her, brow tightening slightly. "Sir, this is the priority lane," she said politely but pointedly. Elon smiled gently. "I know. This is my gate." Denise glanced back down. The name on the boarding pass was unmistakable, Elon Musk, but she hesitated. This man didn't match the image she'd expect. No crisp blazer. No sleek briefcase. She'd served celebrities before, loud ones, flashy ones, ones with entourages and diamond watches. But this man was plain. Calm. Still, the name checked out. She handed the pass back with a tight smile but kept her eyes on him as he walked toward the jet bridge. Inside the plane, Elon moved down the aisle and settled into his first-class seat with quiet ease, like someone used to this kind of travel but never defined by it. Denise, now stationed at the front galley, continued glancing in his direction, not out of recognition, but curiosity. There was something off to her, not rude, not wrong, just unexpected. And when Elon adjusted his seat belt, the cross on his chest shifted fully into view. Denise froze. For a second, her polished demeanor cracked ever so slightly. Her eyes locked onto the cross, and a tension flickered across her face. She didn't say anything immediately, but after a beat she took a few deliberate steps down the aisle, her movements purposeful. Passengers barely noticed. But she was heading directly to Elon. The soft hum of the cabin filled the space as the aircraft climbed steadily through the sky. Outside, clouds glowed in golden light. Inside, the mood was tranquil. Leather seats reclined, champagne poured, and hushed conversations flowed. Elon sat silently, hands folded, not watching a movie, not reading a screen. Just breathing, eyes forward, completely still. That small cross, not freshly polished, slightly dulled by time, rested openly on his shirt. It looked like it had history, maybe even stories of its own. From the galley, Denise peeked again, noticing not just the cross, but the peace in Elon's posture. Something about it unsettled her. She had dealt with billionaires, tech moguls, influencers. Many were loud, entitled, constantly needing attention. But this man didn't demand anything. And yet, she felt disturbed. By him? By the symbol? She couldn't tell. Moments later, she approached, her face still composed, her voice perfectly rehearsed. "Mr. Musk," she said softly, lowering her tone, "I'd like to kindly remind you that in this cabin, we maintain a neutral atmosphere. We ask passengers to be mindful about visible religious displays." Elon turned slowly, his voice calm. Have I violated a policy? No, not officially, she said, her voice tightening just slightly. But we try to prevent discomfort. Some guests may feel unsettled. He looked down at the cross briefly. I've worn this on flights for years. No one's ever brought it up. Denise hesitated. These days, things are more sensitive. Travelers expect discretion. She gestured vaguely toward the cross, as if even pointing directly was too much. Elon remained still. This isn't for show. It's part of who I am. Her smile grew thinner, the kind of smile used to smooth over tension, not resolve it. We appreciate your understanding. In premium seating, we simply ask for subtlety in personal expression. A woman across the aisle looked up. A man 2 rows back adjusted an earbud. The energy in the cabin began to shift. With respect, Elon said, I feel I'm being singled out. Denise blinked. Excuse me? If someone wore a charm of a tree, a stone, or a planet, would they be asked to tuck it in? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked away, and said nothing. He continued, voice low but steady. This necklace has kept me grounded during my darkest hours, in operating rooms, during panic attacks, through nights when I didn't think I'd wake up. His tone didn't rise. But the weight of his words filled the space. I'm not hiding it. Not now. Not ever. For a split second, Denise's composure cracked. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes flicked away. And that's when the cabin really noticed. Denise straightened her back, sensing the momentum shifting away from her. If you refuse, she said firmly, I'll need to escalate this to the captain. Elon's gaze met hers, calm, unwavering. You do what you need to do. But understand, the issue isn't what's around my neck. It's what's behind your eyes. A silence fell so suddenly, it might as well have dropped from the sky. Even the ambient sounds, the hum of engines, the rustle of drink carts, faded in that moment. Denise stepped back, lips parted like she wanted to say something, but didn't. She turned abruptly and walked to the galley, her steps now stiff and mechanical. Elon remained still, cross resting gently against his chest. He hadn't moved, but the atmosphere around him had. Passengers now looked at him not with confusion, but something closer to quiet respect. A man angled his phone toward the aisle, recording without being obvious. Someone whispered, Was that really Elon Musk? Back near the curtain, Denise clenched her jaw, hands trembling slightly as she tapped on her service tablet. She spoke to a younger attendant nearby, her name tag read. Lena. I need you with me at the front. We have a situation I need to handle by protocol. Lena blinked. Is this about the necklace? Denise didn't answer. She just turned and started down the aisle again, Lena following hesitantly. In row 2A, Elon remained seated, looking straight ahead. As they reached his row again, Denise's voice sharpened slightly. Mr. Musk, she said clearly, louder this time. If you continue to disregard flight decorum, I will be forced to inform the captain and possibly involve airport security upon landing. Elon turned toward her slowly, his tone still composed. For wearing a cross? No, she replied, almost too quickly. For refusing a crew member's instruction during flight. The words rang hollow. Around them, more heads turned. Passengers were no longer pretending not to listen. Lena spoke gently, her voice almost a whisper. Maybe we should check with the captain before things go further. Denise shot her a look. Sharp. Controlling. But it was too late. Control was slipping. 5 minutes later, the cockpit door opened. Out stepped Captain Singh, a tall, composed man in his late 50s, with a quiet kind of command that didn't need volume. He walked calmly down the aisle, stopping when he reached the attendants. What's going on? He asked. Denise spoke quickly. Sir, a passenger is refusing to comply with a request. He was asked to conceal a religious item. He declined. The situation escalated. The captain turned to Lena. And your perspective? Lena hesitated, then spoke clearly. He was polite. He never raised his voice. He just didn't want to hide his necklace. Captain Singh nodded once. Then he turned to Elon. Mr. Musk, I'm Captain Singh. I understand there's been a disagreement. I want to make sure we maintain a respectful environment for everyone. May I hear your version of events? Elon looked up and answered without hesitation. She asked me to hide this. He touched the cross gently. She said it might make people uncomfortable. I said no. He paused. I wear this because it helped me survive the hardest chapters of my life. It's not about making a statement. It's a reminder that I'm still here. I don't wear it for others. I wear it for me. The cabin was silent. Even the passengers 3 rows back could feel the gravity of his words. The captain didn't respond right away. He looked to Denise. Did he speak disrespectfully? Denise opened her mouth, then closed it. No, she muttered. He turned to Lena. Anything aggressive? No, sir, she replied. Captain Singh exhaled slowly, then spoke loud enough for the nearby passengers to hear. This airline supports every person's right to personal expression of faith, so long as it's done respectfully. I believe Mr. Musk has done exactly that. He nodded once to Elon, then walked calmly back toward the cockpit. Denise didn't follow. She stayed in the galley, jaw tight, eyes darting across the screen of her vibrating phone. She hadn't opened it yet, but she didn't need to. She already knew. The video was online. Her face, her tone, her words, all being dissected by strangers across the internet. But the shame didn't come from the backlash. It came from something deeper, the realization that she judged someone quietly, professionally, politely. And that's what made it worse. A voice echoed in her memory, her grandmother's voice, soft and loving. Real kindness isn't what you say. It's what you choose not to hide. She had spent years hiding behind rules, behind policy, behind control. Now there was nowhere left to hide. Later in the flight, the captain's voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to remind everyone that we are committed to creating an environment where people are treated with dignity, respect, and the freedom to express themselves without shame. No one needed context. They knew what it meant. Elon sat still in 2A. The cross still visible. He hadn't gloated. He hadn't retaliated. And somehow, that struck deeper than if he had. Denise stood behind the curtain for a long time. Then, finally, she stepped out. She walked slowly toward Elon's seat, hands tight at her sides, breath shallow. Passengers fell silent. She stopped in front of him. I was wrong, she said quietly. I told myself I was enforcing professionalism, but really, I was just protecting my own discomfort. Her voice cracked. I've hidden behind neutrality for years, thinking it made me strong. But it just made me afraid. I'm sorry. Elon looked at her for a long moment. Then stood slowly and extended a hand. She took it. He helped her up gently, not with showmanship, not with judgment. Just quiet understanding. They stood there, holding hands, a flight attendant and a passenger. One once hiding behind policy. The other never hiding anything at all. And somewhere in that silent cabin, something began to heal. 2 weeks later, Denise sat in her modest apartment, recording a video on her phone. No makeup. No uniform. Just her. In her hand, she held the silver cross Elon had gifted her at the end of the flight. She looked into the camera. For years, I thought professionalism meant hiding who I was. But this, she said, raising the necklace, reminded me what it means to be human. She smiled. I don't hide anymore. She paused, then added, Thank you, Elon. She ended the recording. Sat still for a moment. And finally, she felt free.